We had spoken yesterday about that the three sins, which are considered very severe to the point that if you're involved in this area of behavior, one has no share in the world to come. Idolatry, murder, and adultery. And not only does one forfeit his share in the world to come, God will reckon with him even in this world. It's just Rambam is quoting the words of the Talmud, and he says, however, Lashon Hara, speaking negatively about another person without any constructive value, also a person who's a gossiper in this area, he will be reckoned with in this world and forfeit his share in the world to come. And that is the equivalent of all three combined. So I mentioned yesterday that Yaakov, when he had fled, because he was under threat of being killed by his brother Esau, after he took the birthright, he said he prayed to Hashem he should be protected, and he used the word ushmarani. Hashem should watch over him. He was going to a community which was rife with adultery, murder, and idolatry. And therefore, he was concerned he'd be somehow compromised being there, being exposed to that kind of environment. And he said, in addition, Lashon Hara. I should be protected from Lashon Hara. I should not speak negative about others where it has no constructive value. So one of the people on the Zoom yesterday had said something I'd once said. Why does a person, God forbid, commit adultery? He doesn't take into consideration that this woman is married to another man. So because he minimizes that person's value. If you're able to somehow negate that person's value, as a result of that, in a person's mind, you're able to, God forbid, justify adultery. Is he a husband? What's his value? He's worthless. As a result of that, in one's mind, he's able to somehow deal with his conscience and, God forbid, commit adultery. Murder, what's his worth? What's his earnings? What's his value in society? He has no value. I'm doing a service to society. He's a thief. He's dishonest. Whatever way you want to frame him, seeing it through that negative lens, which has no constructive value, ultimately, it could lead to murder. Because what have I really done? What's society missing? And somehow in a person's mind, a person could justify God for taking a person's life. Idolatry, also. Why does one believe in a deity? Because he believes that deity accommodates him. But if a person feels he's in the position, he can pass judgment on what is and what's not, as he passes judgment on people who he has a right to speak to, and who he has a right to deprecate and minimize. He has a right to pick and choose who God is not. That's idolatry. That's a deity. So ultimately, Lashon Hara, if a person speaks and passes judgment negative of other people, and he sees himself in his ivory tower, and he's God's gift to humanity, in a certain way, he's playing God himself. When you speak, and therefore the Talmud says a person speaks Lashon Hara, he's actually almost denying God's existence. Because how do you speak with such pompousness? Because it's coming from one's own sense of superiority. I have a right to pass judgment. What do you mean? You may be suffering with the same deficiencies as the other person. I mean, are you so lily white that you have a right to speak about others? Therefore, that lens that you see through ultimately could bring everything down. Okay, that's what we explained yesterday. We're holding chapter 7, halacha 4. Avak Lashon Hara. In Hebrew, the word avak means dust. There's the dustings of Lashon Hara. What's dustings of Lashon Hara? You don't actually verbalize it, but you allude to certain things or do certain things which could bring to saying the wrong thing. For instance, in a public setting, you speak excessively in a praiseworthy manner about a certain person. You know what you're doing. It's almost inevitable that because he's saying in a public setting, somebody may pipe up and say, he's not as perfect as you think. So you're creating a setting, a scenario where somebody may actually interject and say, it's not as you say. So even though you spoke positively, but it has the dustings of Lashon Hara, because by what you're saying, that caused the other person to react as you react. I'll give you an example. If you smell pepper, especially cayenne pepper, and you inhale it, what do? You sneeze. You inhale, you sneeze. If you speak certain things, even though they're positive, but if people are touched in a certain way and they're going to react to it, then you're not permitted to say it. But I'm speaking praiseworthiness. He's one of a kind of a person. By the way, you don't know what I know. That may be the response. So since you're creating a setting where somebody may say, it's not as you say it, of course, I know what you don't know, and he may divulge what he knows, whether it's true or not, it doesn't make a difference. You're activating a setting that somebody may say something negative. That's number one. What about, I personally, between two people, and I share with somebody how special a person is. But even if when you speak about how special a person is, you say, it's true he is, but. Because even yourself, you realize nobody's perfect. And as you share his special qualities and traits, say, but he has one shortcoming. When you interject and conclude that one shortcoming, that sharing that has no value. What's its constructive value? You know, he's smart, he's a genius, he's giving, but you know something, he's robbing it. He steals from the rich and gives to the poor. Okay, so he said he's a thief. He said everything positive. Because whenever a person overly praises a person, even between two individuals, automatically you say, but you know, without any coaxing, but he's really not that perfect. He's perfect, he's more perfect. Because you know, everything is graded on a bell curve. Everything's only relative to everything else. On a bell curve, he's ultimate. But you know what? He also has skeletons in his closet. So once you say that, you've said something wrong. So overly praising a person, in between two individuals, you're not permitted because ultimately it may lead to say something that you shouldn't say. That's called avak Lashon Hara. It's the dustings of Lashon Hara. You know, we talk about, forensic evidence. You know, what do? You dust the floor and somebody walks in, somebody was there because you can see his footprints in the dust. You know, when you say certain things, you're laying the groundwork. That's something that they're going to find an imprint in that dust. And that the imprint is not going to be a beautiful imprint. It may have certain ugliness to it. Of course, it's going to cause certain things to be said which shouldn't be said. Another example, which the Chafetz Chaim says. Somebody asks me about Bob Kurzweil. And they say, how's Bob doing? I prefer not to discuss it. That's all I said. I prefer not to discuss it. But what does that connote? Please don't ask me. What does that say? I prefer not to say something negative, so just don't ask me. But that kind of response is avak Lashon Hara. You didn't say anything bad. You didn't even articulate what it is. But you're ready, there's smoke. And there's smoke, there's fire. That's what it connotes. Therefore, you can't. Somebody else said, I really don't know. Remain silent. But that kind of reaction, or a person makes a face, is he as smart as they say he is? And you make a face. Like you're in wonderment. Is that what they say about it? You didn't say anything. But the gesture, the facial feature, again, connotes something. That's avak Lashon Hara. That's the dustings of Lashon Hara, although you didn't say anything specific. The Gemara, it's based on voice connotation, meaning the way you express it. Person says, I'm looking for fire. I need a fire. They say, up the road. They're always cooking there. Now, they're always cooking. You could say in a way which connotes they're a bunch of gluttons. And all they're busy, they're cooking all day because they're eating all day. They're into gluttony. That's negative. What do you say? But you say it another way, if you want fire, they have the kitchen's open all day. There's always fire there. You could say, they have a large family. They're doing tremendous hospitality, because there's nothing over there even to allude there's something negative about that. But if you say it in a way where the way you expressed it, well, they're always cooking over there. So the same words, but just on the way you say it, will determine whether it has dustings of something negative or something which is positive, which is very generic. That's avak lashon hara. To say it in a way which, the way you express it, it connotes something negative. Although it's the same words, if you said it differently, it wouldn't connote anything.
Rabbi, if we find ourselves
Yesh dvarim she'ein avak lashon hara ketzav. Mi yomar leploni she'kamo shuato. Somebody says, would you think this person, he's still the same person? That's the comment you make. You hadn't seen a person for 20 years. You say, it's unbelievable. He hasn't changed in 20 years. Who would have believed he's the same way? What does that say? You think he changed, he gets older, becomes smarter, wiser, more respectful. No change. Oshioma shasku meploni. Enu rots lodia ma'era. Please, let's not discuss so-and-so. I don't even want to share with you what happened. These are examples given in the Gemara. Umahoyo, or what happened? You walk into a room, the place looks like a shambles. Say, what happened? You say, somebody was just here. He doesn't clean up after himself. Person said, I'm sorry, the room is not ready yet because the past person who occupied the room doesn't live like a civilized human being. Putting it in mind. That's why it takes about 3 days to clean up the room. It's a no smoking room and he smoked. So what are you saying? The man has no consideration. The man doesn't live like a respectful human being. Unacceptable. Can't discuss it. What about if you speak positively about a person in the presence of somebody who despises him? I'll give you an example. You have a customer, and you say to the person who is this other person's customer, and he somehow weaned away the customer to him from the other person. And you go to that original person and say, by the way, I heard this other person has this phenomenal customer today. And I heard he used to be your customer. What are you doing? You're putting salt on the wounds. It's bad enough he doesn't have the customer any longer, but when you mention the person who took it from him, what does it do? You're stoking the coals. It's like you're putting the blades in him and you're twisting the blade. You know what that's called? That's the instigator at the most extreme level. You're instigating and intensifying the level of negative feeling from one Jew to another. You're not permitted to do it. Two people have a dispute and they go before the judge. And you say to the person, he says, I heard you lost the case. What's the value of saying that to the person? I heard you lost the case. He felt he should have won the case. That means the other person did him in. So it actually brings out something negative feeling about the other person. You're not permitted to say it. Ultimately, when you speak about something praiseworthy in the presence of somebody's enemy, it's going to evoke, he's going to say something negative. Therefore, you're not permitted. The Gemara tells us, when you do tshuva, and the Rambam rules this in laws of tshuva, if it's between man and God, you have remorse, you commit yourself, you're fully forgiven. If it's between man and man, you first have to ask forgiveness from the person who you victimized, whether you insulted him, whether you embarrassed him, whether you stole from him, whether you didn't pay his wage on time. These are all Torah violations. You first have to ask forgiveness from him. After he forgives you, then you go and work it out with God. Do tshuva. That between man and God. But the Gemara says, let's say a person, God forbid, is sitting Shiva, and the person is consumed with his grief, and you're a person, you don't have a good relationship with him, and you're coming and presenting yourself, and you want to say nice words to console him. You know something? It's not the time you should go there. Because as it is, he sees you in the negative. Do you think now he has the capacity even to appreciate what you're trying to do? He sees it, you're gloating over his pain. Therefore, the Talmud says you shouldn't go. You cannot console a person in time of his pain. And if you're this kind of person, he only sees that you're taking advantage, you're gloating over his pain. Therefore, don't go, stay away. You think you're doing the right thing, you're doing the wrong thing. The people say to me, now they all mean well, and they want to become outreach people, and they see something being done wrong in the community, they're going to say something. I say to them, I said, you want to be smart? Keep quiet. Why? Because you're going to cause more damage than good. Because firstly, you don't know how to speak. You don't have the sensitivities to even understand what to say and how to say it. Therefore, you're ahead of the game if you say nothing. You're going to actually alienate the person to a greater degree. So what's the point of saying anything? You only say something that it should be beneficial. It should have some positive result. By you saying it, there's no positive. Therefore, better keep quiet than say something. Similar. Anything that comes out of our mouths could actually have tremendous value, or could have great detriment and literally be destructive. Sometimes a person will give a compliment, right? I'll give you an example. A person's on a diet. He took off about 40 pounds, and his suit is hanging on him. Okay? Because originally wore a 60 portly, and now he took off 40 pounds, and now it's a 55 portly. He'd say, you look great, the suit hangs on you. But you got a way to go yet. Is that a compliment? Well, I complimented him. How many people take off 40, 50 pounds? And the guy's not even on Ozempic, whatever the drug's called. He's not even on that. And everybody gets a good laugh. But who's the brunt of the laugh? The guy wearing the portly suit, that's 3 sizes too big on him. Okay. But everybody, everybody's is on everybody else's case. And if you get mileage where it doesn't cost you, very often people are right there, and they're eager to listen and to even laugh, and they get to have a good time at somebody else's expense. That tzaddikim are greater than the greatest angel. Every tzaddik is greater than the greatest angel. So Rav Chaim Volozhin writes, I mean, what an angel understands and comprehends, no human being understands, regardless of what kind of tzaddik you are. An angel is a spiritual being. What it means, but why is an angel and have the capacity the angel has? Because God created him to be that. It has nothing to do with the initiative of the angel. The angel is what he is because that's why God created him, to function in that capacity. No human being is born a tzaddik. Every person is born an infant. You become based on your choices throughout your life. So the achievement of a tzaddik to become that, every notch up, it's what he contributed. As a result of that, his accomplishment is greater than the greatest angel. His innate value is greater than the greatest angel. The greatest angel has nothing to do with who he is, because God created him as that. As it says, everything is predestined except tzaddik and rasha. Whether you can be wealthy, brilliant, healthy, whatever, that's all predestined. But tzaddik and rasha, where you can be devoutly righteous or evil, that's up to each individual to make a choice. That's free choice. Therefore, the person who ultimately ends up to be the tzaddik, his value is greater than the greatest angel. That's how Rav Chaim Volozhin explains that Gemara in Sanhedrin. Many years ago, there was a person who came to Yad Avram, going back now 30 years ago, graduated Harvard, and just as a little bit of an aside, and a certain person did not write his entry letter to get him in there, and He was a fine guy. And when he started to put on tefillin, he says to me, how could I put on tefillin? In terms of where my hands have been, the level of sin that I've been involved in, I'd be disgracing the tefillin by putting it on my body. What my head has been, what I've been thinking about, what I thought about. How do I put such a holy object on my head and such a holy object on my upper arm? I said, just the opposite. If despite that, you understand its value and you want to forget about the past and go beyond the past, you're special. Because a person who was where you were would not be where he is today. It's all because your initiative, that's why you're today. Therefore, God wants you to put that tefillah on your upper arm and on your head, even more than anyone else. Because for you, it's a phenomenal accomplishment where you're coming from.